What's up, Taiwan? I'm Reece with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Thousands of people are still homeless in eastern Taiwan 3 weeks on from the Hualien earthquake. As John Van Trieste reports, they're faced with a difficult question: reinforce their damaged homes or tear them down and rebuild.
This is one of 54 Hualien County buildings left uninhabitable by this month's magnitude 7.2 earthquake. The people who used to live here are now living in shelters, unsure about the future. Officials say help is on the way. Already, reconstruction funding is moving through the legislature.
相信在5月20号前后会3读通过，到时候150亿的资金的挹注，不管是在花莲也好，新北还是台北市的万华也好，也是桃园也好，通通可以使用。
But how should this money be used? It's a divisive question. In most cases, residents of damaged buildings can decide to spend it on repairs and reinforcements. It's an approach some officials favor.
现在目前有强制拆除，就是说它的这个建筑物已经倾斜，那持续有变位的状态哦。那现在目前有9栋，那至于其他的大楼，他们都是属于还可以去做修复跟补强的，所以我们就是很希望他们能够走这个弱层或者是耐震补强的这个方案。
But the money can also be used to cover demolition and rebuilding according to the latest earthquake-proofing standards. The problem is that most damaged buildings are apartment blocks, and residents are divided. The residents of one building have decided to put the issue to a vote after hearing their options.
包含委托书的部分总共有89票，那里面有74票是赞成做耐震补强的，14票要做重建，1票是无效票。所以我们大楼已经在今天决议我们要走耐震补强的部分。
But there are around 2,000 displaced households in Hualien alone, and residents of each building will have to reach their own agreements, meaning a potentially long and painful road back to their homes. Klein Wang and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Climate change campaigners have rallied in Taipei to call on the government to speed up plans to phase out coal. Laurel Stewart went out to find out about what they're demanding.
2028无煤生活，2028无煤生活。
Legislators and representatives from about 30 NGOs are gathered here outside Taiwan's legislature, calling for an end to the country's use of coal. Coal is a fossil fuel that, when burned, releases toxic gases and carbon dioxide, contributing to global warming and posing huge threats to people's health here in Taiwan. People here are specifically calling on Taiwan's newly elected government to prioritise pledges already in legislature to speed up the end to the use of coal. They're specifically targeting the Taichung power plant, which is one of the world's biggest carbon emitters. That power plant has already pledged to end the use of coal by 2035. But people here say that they've already been living under the plant's polluted skies for 33 years. Waiting another 11 years is not something that is viable for them.
那个环保团体认为2028是目标，我们当然乐观其成啊。
加油加油！
因为只要政府有心就可以加速啊，好，对不对？我们要早一点，我们早一点达到中火无煤，就早一点让这个中南部的居民哈，这个能够多呼吸这个健康的这个空气哈。
Taiwan has pledged to end the use of coal completely by 2060, but currently it relies on this fossil fuel to provide 40% of its energy supply. Now, that is a significant amount, and with the current government's plans to end its nuclear power supply by 2025, there are fears that without replacing these power sources with viable alternatives, it will make it harder for the country to phase out its coal use. Now, all this is happening as President-elect Li announces his new cabinet. His new environment minister, Peng Chiming, has said that he will be announcing plans to take Taiwan to net zero carbon emissions by 2050. While those plans are not yet clear and nothing has yet been said on the country's phasing out of coal, people here are hoping that their message of a coal-free Taiwan will be heard as those new lawmakers get to work. Chris Ma and Laurel Stewart in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's incoming president Lai Ching-te says he'll work hard to improve opportunities for young people. Li made the promise at a 2-day youth forum organised by the ruling Democratic Progressive Party. The president-elect was asked about policies including the expansion of social housing projects and paid family leave for young parents. The DPP is trying to win back younger voters after many under 40s voted for opposition candidates in January's election. Li is due to be inaugurated next month. The death of a reportedly overworked legal clerk has renewed calls for reform in Taiwan's legal system. A clerk in Miaoli District Court had been hospitalized several times and died from liver and kidney failure in February. His colleagues said he was overworked and his office could not handle its overwhelming caseload. The clerk's death comes after the suspected suicide of a judge who was also reportedly overworked. Taiwan's judiciary has proposed reforms to address understaffing in the legal system. If you live in Taiwan and are experiencing thoughts about suicide, please call 1995 for help. Should Taiwan abolish the death penalty? The public says no. That's according to surveys which consistently show there's strong support for capital punishment. But is it constitutional? A group of death row inmates say it's not, and they're going to court to prove it. Louise Watt reports.
In their small office in Taipei, activist Lin Xinyi sifts through some of the abusive letters her organisation has received for its work campaigning for the end of the death penalty. While those who send abuse are a small minority, a majority of Taiwan's population does support the death penalty. Attitudes Lin has spent years trying to change.
作为一个民主现代的民主国家，台湾怎么还有可能容忍这样的制度在台湾继续的存在下去？
In her latest fight, Lin is supporting Taiwan's 37 death row inmates in a landmark case. They are to argue in court that the death penalty should be abolished. In recent years, the justices here at Taiwan's Constitutional Court have weighed in on some of the biggest rights issues facing Taiwanese society, including paving the way for the legalization of same-sex marriage. Now they're set to hear arguments that the death penalty is unconstitutional, based on the principles of right to life and human dignity. Successive governments in Taiwan have maintained the death penalty, including the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, whose party constitution once said it would gradually abolish the punishment. Under President Tsai Ing-wen, Taiwan has executed 2 people. That compares to 33 under the previous administration of Ma Ying-jeou, from the Kuomintang or KMT. KMT legislators say they're worried the court is going to abolish the death penalty.
我要请问蔡英文总统，你所提名的大法官真的要跟台湾民意对着干吗？真的是要跟台湾民意对着干吗？如果今天超过8%，将近90%的台湾人是不同意废死。
With strong opposition to abolishing the death penalty, human rights activists are now hopeful, given that the debate has reached the Constitutional Court.
基于对于宪法的理解，他应该要做出决定，而不是要去思考说我做出来这个决定，人民会不会喜欢。
The court will have to give a judgment by September. Taiwan's use of capital punishment and the fate of the 36 men and 1 woman on death row are in their hands. Devon Tsai and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
The Philippines and the US have begun their largest ever joint combat exercises. The annual Balikatan exercises will see nearly 17,000 troops take part in 3 weeks of drills. They include exercises in the country's northernmost islands facing Taiwan. The drills come as Manila and Beijing increasingly clash over competing claims in the South China Sea. The Maldives' ruling party is tipped to win the country's parliamentary elections, signalling a shift in allegiances from India to China. Preliminary results show the People's National Congress Party, led by incumbent President Mohamed Muizu, won the majority in Sunday's elections. Muizu campaigned on an India out platform and strengthened economic ties with China after taking office in September 2023. The Maldives' location in the Indian Ocean makes it strategically important to both China and India. Hundreds of mourners joined a vigil in Sydney, Australia on Sunday to remember the victims of last week's mass stabbing attack. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese was there to pay tribute to the 6 people killed and their families. 12 others were injured in the April 13th attack near Sydney's Bondi Beach. Attendees said they hope the vigil helps heal the community's scars.
Even if you weren't up at the junction on that day, it's our local place, it's where we all go all the time. And part of coming tonight was to put a stake in the ground and go, that's done, move on.
Over 127 million people are at risk in China's Guangdong province as heavy rains trigger floods. Officials have issued emergency alerts as high water levels and a landslide cut off several villages. Over 45,000 people have been evacuated and over 1 million people lost power. 700 students were rescued after being stranded in their dormitories. The extreme downpours are expected to continue through Monday along the southeastern coast of China. Tokyo celebrated the LGBTQ+ community over the weekend with its annual Pride March. But Japan is the only G7 country that doesn't legally recognize same-sex unions. I spoke to Ken Suzuki, campaigner and law professor at Meiji University, to find out why Japan has been slow to follow other developed economies on LGBTQ+ rights. What's the current state of LGBTQ+ rights in Japan?
近几年对这个同志议题是民众的关心度有所提升，也提到政治领域也积极的讨论，但是目前为止还没有出台一部保证同志权益的相关法律。那目前是主要透过司法的管道来争取这个同志权利，在社会层面，针对这个LGBT 议题的讨论呢，非常的热烈，加上这个年轻人非常关心这个议题，然后媒体也经常报道，还有相关的这个电视剧电影还有艺术作品小说这些东西呢，很受欢迎。但是需要注意的是，跨性别的 anti-transgender 对这个现象非常的明显。特别是网络空间。
Why is Japan the last G7 nation to legalize same-sex marriage?
因为日本很难发生这个政党轮替，一种保守的势力一直以来这个执政，所以很难改变现状，这是比较简单。所以某种意义上来说，日本的民主机制没有正常运转。
How close is Japan to legalizing same-sex marriage?
所以这个立法的这个部分很难推动，这个是非常的明显。因为这个自民党为首的这个保守势力呢，是极力反对同志结婚，为了这个守住这个他们所谓的那种传统的价值。最近虽然是立法的这个进展是不太理想，但是呢有几件这个诉讼的结果，最高裁判所的这个判决出来。这个针对这个 LGBT 议题的这个问题是这个裁判所态度是比较开明、比较友善，做出几件这个违宪的判决。那这样子的话呢，是不久将来有望这个在立法部门也需要做一些调整。所以这个同婚议题也是了，过3年之内，我觉得有希望做出违宪判决。这样子国会也不得不进行立法。
That was Ken Suzuki, a law professor at Meiji University and LGBTQ+ rights campaigner. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally today, check out these images of an upcoming exhibition in Pingdong featuring animal wood sculptures made by Japanese artists. I'm Reece Ayers, take care and see you next time.